You ever wonder what happens when a simple question on an old internet forum turns into a full-blown electrical detective story? Well, that's exactly what we're digging into today. A real-world mystery that had electricians cracking open the codebook to hunt down one single safe answer.
Okay, picture this. You're in an older house. You pop open the subpanel, the smaller breaker box, and everything kind of looks okay until you spot it. Something critical is missing, the equipment ground wire. That's pretty much the main safety line for the entire system. So what do? As we're about to find out, the easy fix isn't always the right one, and that right there is the heart of this whole puzzle.
All right, so let's meet our detective. He's an electrical safety inspector. We're going to call Inspector Mike. Way back in 2003, he posted this hypothetical, but super common, problem on a professional forum. He wasn't looking for opinions. He wanted to know what the code actually said. So here's the scene. You've got an older house where the main power comes to a big shutoff switch outside. From there, a thick 3-wire cable runs inside to that subpanel. And there's the problem. It should be a 4-wire cable. That missing 4th wire is the ground, and without it, the system just isn't safe. This sets up the big challenge. Is there any possible way to make this safe without the massive headache and cost of ripping out and replacing that entire cable? And this quote, this is the core of the whole investigation. Mike's question is so specific. He's not asking, hey, what could I get away with? Or what would you do in a pinch? He wants to know, in black and white, what does the official rulebook, the National Electrical Code, actually allow? So, Inspector Mike does what any good detective would do. He goes straight to the primary source. For an electrician, that's the NEC. You can think of it as the foundational text, the rulebook for making sure electrical work is done safely here in the US. On his first pass, Mike finds these 3 sections. And look at the words he's zeroing in on. Or, any, with. You can see why he's hopeful, right? The language seems to leave the door open a crack. Include or provide makes it sound like maybe the ground wire can be separate. By any of the conductors sounds like you've got options. But that last one, with or enclosing, that's the real sticking point. And just like that, this whole complicated investigation boils down to a single point of language. A potential loophole that could save a ton of time, effort, and money, but only if it's interpreted the right way. Now, before we go any deeper, let's just make sure we're all on the same page about the star of our show, the Equipment Grounding Conductor, or EGC. Think of your wiring like a highway for electricity. The EGC is the emergency shoulder. If there's a fault, like a short circuit, it gives all that dangerous electricity a safe, easy path to take, which immediately trips the breaker. Without it, that electricity might try to find another path, and that path could be through a person. So this is it. This is the million-dollar question. When the code says the ground wire has to be run with the other wires, does that mean it has to be physically inside the same cable jacket, like in a proper 4-wire cable? Or could you just run a totally separate copper wire right alongside the existing cable? The answer changes everything. So Inspector Mike has kind of hit a wall. He's wrestling with the interpretation. But that's the great thing about these professional communities. Somebody else almost always has the key you're looking for. Sometimes all you need is a fresh set of eyes. And that is exactly what happened here. Another member of the forum, a moderator named Don, just drops a little comment. He doesn't write a big, long essay. He just points Mike in a brand new direction. That's it. 4 simple words. Look at 303B. This was the clue that cracked the whole case wide open. And it's a perfect example of how knowing the code isn't just about memorizing rules, it's about knowing how all those rules connect to each other. So Don's clue sends Mike to a totally different chapter of the codebook, one that covers general wiring methods. And buried in there, he finds the final definitive piece of the puzzle he was looking for. You can almost see the breadcrumb trail he followed. Don's clue, section 300.3b, does say you can run an external ground wire, but it immediately points you to another section, 250.102e, to get the specific requirements. And that's where the final answer was waiting. And it turns out the answer to can you run the ground wire outside the cable is yes, the code absolutely allows it. At first, this feels like a huge win for the easy fix. But like a lot of things in the code, there is a very, very important catch. And here it is, the catch. That external, separate grounding wire can't be any longer than 6 feet. That's it. 6 feet. The rule is really designed for short little connections, like bonding a motor to a nearby conduit. It was never meant for the long haul between two panels across a house. So here's where the rubber meets the road. That easy fix Mike was hoping for, just running a new ground wire all the way back to the main panel, is completely off the table. That 6-foot rule makes it impossible. For his situation, the only safe, the only code-compliant solution is the hard one. You've got to replace that whole 3-wire cable with a proper 4-wire one. But you have to be wondering, why? Why is the code so strict about this? Well, it's not about bureaucracy, it's about physics. See, when you run wires far apart, they create a magnetic field that can actually choke off the flow of electricity during a short circuit. It's a phenomenon called inductance. Keeping that ground wire bundled tightly with the other wires cancels out that effect, and that ensures the breaker trips in a split second like it's supposed to. And this right here, this is the why behind the wire. It's all about creating a super fast, low-resistance path for electricity to take when things go wrong, making sure that breaker trips instantly. This is what protects you from getting shocked, what stops fires from starting, and what keeps the metal casing on your toaster from turning into a hazard. It is, quite literally, a lifesaver. So Inspector Mike's little puzzle led him to a tough but clear answer. And it's a fantastic reminder that the National Electrical Code, with all its dense language and cross-references, isn't just some dusty book of rules. It's a guide, built on over 100 years of experience, and every single rule is there to answer one fundamental question. What is the absolute safest way to do this?